Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is WANYUGI. I am a mom to a 3-year-old. In the past, I have spoken honestly about our experience with child loss, with IVF, and finally being able to have a baby. And most recently, my family moved to Dubai, so I have also been speaking about being an expert stay-at-home mom. So yes, welcome to my channel. Subscribe, click the notification bell so that whenever I post something, you can be able to see it. So let's get to today's video. So last week I put up a video sharing my experience after moving to Dubai and talking about my struggles as a new stay-at-home mom, because I came from like full-time work to being a full-time stay-at-home and then adding the mix of moving to a new country, and that's the video I shared. And a lot of you sent so much love, and I want to say thank you, because you shared your previous experiences and how you have coped with tough times, and so much encouragement. Others connected me to friends who are living here in Dubai and said, hey, you should totally speak to so-and-so, and I did, and I've already made like 2 new friends already. Some, like, I actually met them, like we visited each other, and actually this week I have a play date with one of them for my child, and it's been exciting. So thank you very much for all that support. Now, one question came up that I'd like to answer with today's video, and that is, how did you know you were stressed? How did you know you were overwhelmed? And they said, I know you shared about like just finding yourself crying in the evenings when the baby was finally in bed, but what are some of the other things that you started to notice that showed you that you were stressed? And that's what I'd like to talk to you today about. And this video will also talk about healthy coping mechanisms. Now, let me just give a disclaimer. I have worked in the mental health industry for 5 years. I have been running Still a Mom, which is an organization that supports parents who've lost a baby, for 5 years. And as much as I only have a certificate course in counseling, I have been working very, very, very closely with counselors for the last 5 years. And so I have quite the experience to speak on the matter of stress, or being overwhelmed, as well as healthy coping mechanism. And I got a new journal, and I will be talking about journaling in this episode. So as it's the norm, I take notes because I want to be as effective in the videos as possible. So let's talk about, how do you know you're stressed? How do you know you're overwhelmed? Except the time, we most of the time we only know when it's like at its extreme. You've broken down, you're crying in public transport or in the middle of a really public place, or you just like it's at its most extreme. But before you get there are all these signs that we need to look out for, and that is now where self-awareness comes in. Now imagine you have a glass of water and a jug of water right next to it, a jug full of water and an empty glass, and if you keep pouring into the glass, and you keep pouring into the glass, and you keep pouring into the glass, eventually the glass will overflow and the water will pour out. And so that's the same with us and our mental capacity. Every day life is pouring stuff into us, and then if we are not taking it out, and that's now the rule of self-care, the glass will continue to fill until now you overflow. And what will happen is that there's usually a trigger situation, something that is done to you, and it could be as simple as somebody stepped on your toes and you went off, and then the water just overflow. And we think that at that point, that's when we are stressed, but that's the last step. What about all these other things? Let's talk about one, changes in appetite. Either you have no appetite whatsoever, or all of a sudden you are overeating, and your cycle of eating just changes. You're hungry all the time, and even the kind of things you start to crave for. It is documented scientifically that when we are stressed, we crave for something sweet or greasy. And people are different, so how you respond. You will start to notice that you're starting to gravitate to certain foods all the time, and that's a nice indicator that something is not right. Your stress levels are beginning to peak. Number 2 is changes in your mood. So either you're sad a lot, and therefore comes the crying and just feeling very moody. Your moods change. And number 2, under moods, it could also be irritability. And this for me is such an effective indicator. The moment I start to just like snap, I'm so irritable. And it could be the simplest thing that my son did, but all of a sudden I just feel like, that rising anger, and you become very irritable. Now, number 3, it's sleep issues. This is a very nice indicator to know, am I stressed? How am I doing? Are you all of a sudden struggling with insomnia, or your sleeping patterns just feel off. You get into bed, usually get into bed by, let's say, 9 or 10, and for some reason you can't fall asleep until midnight. And that's a new thing that you're starting to notice. It never used to be like that. Or you just feel very sleepy during the day, and then at night all of a sudden you can't sleep. So these changes in your sleep patterns could also indicate that you're stressed. And then number 5, craving for certain substances. Now we talked about the food, where you start to crave for either greasy food or sugary stuff. But then there's a time you start to crave, for example, for a glass of wine or anything alcoholic. And for some people, they just have a craving for nicotine. And for some of us, some people, it could be like very high caffeine cravings, for example. So responding to, trying to see what is it that I am craving. And there are very many other signals that your stress levels are starting to get off, and self-awareness is knowing, and your physical body has a tendency to tell you how your mental health is doing. And I just want to tell you to please be aware of yourself, so that when you get to know, how am I doing mentally? Am I stressed? Am I okay? And at what point is my glass at this point? Am I like halfway full? Am I like 3/4 way full, and very soon I'm going to overflow? Know yourself, so that then you can go into like healthy coping mechanisms. And that's the other thing I wanted to talk to you about. Now, I have worked with so many counselors over the last 5 years, and this is a conversation we have all the time. What is healthy coping mechanisms for stress or for depression, for instance? And let me just, most of them will tell you there are 2 types. There's the coping mechanisms that distract us from what is currently happening in our life. And I'm not talking about the extreme part where you're escaping from your problems. No, it's you need a distraction from what you currently are feeling. And then number 2 is the processing techniques, which is now when you're feeling like you want to handle what is going on with you. And so I'd like to, like divide them like that: distraction techniques and processing techniques. And so for distraction could be, do you like to draw? Do you like to doodle? Do you like to color? For me, I have been finding coloring very therapeutic. I buy children's books, and then there are sections where you're supposed to color in blue or red or purple, and then when you're done with it, it looks very beautiful. I know it's supposed to be for my son, but I discovered recently that there are adult coloring books. There are actually even apps for this, where it tells you where to put what color, and by the time you're done, you feel therapeutic and you build something beautiful. And another distraction techniques could be doing a puzzle. Now, I have downloaded an app, and I'll share some of these apps in the description below. So it could be like a puzzle, like the jigsaw puzzles, and I have this app that sends me an app every day for the puzzle of the day. It could be doing some Sudoku, it could be crossword puzzles, it could be these word puzzles that are all over. So there are so many apps, but just like to remove you from your current place and sort of like distract you, to take you to another place where it's not all about what you're feeling. And get me straight here, we're not saying run away from your problems, but to be honest, there are times that you could use the chance to hit pause on what you're feeling and just namaste, like just rest in it a little bit. And so these are some healthy distractions. Of course, when anything is not done in moderation, then it becomes escapism. If you're not going to deal with your situation at all, then you're just running away, and that's not healthy either. We're just talking about periodic and brief distraction. And the third one could be going for a walk. And what this does is that either the nature will just calm you down, but also the exercise is good for you. You get to get your endorphins up, and of course go out and get some vitamin D. And by the way, you should look into the research that has been done about the effects of vitamin D and your mental health. And so go for a walk, get some fresh air, draw or doodle, do a puzzle, escape into a good book, a good movie, some good music. You could even create a playlist. So that's I would say the fourth is just to escape into either a book, a song, a movie, just like move away a little bit from the current reality you're in. And then when you're back, you may feel that you are more calm to come and handle what it is that you're going through at the moment. And so now we've talked about the sort of like distraction techniques. How about the processing techniques? Here is now like facing your issue head on. And how do you do that? So number 1 could be speaking to a friend or speaking to your parent, whoever. Look for, it's always good to have 5 people on your phone book of, it could be friends, your sisters, siblings, your parents. We all know who we talk to freely, you know, like without filters, without reservation. So talk to a friend or somebody who listens to you. So 5 numbers that if you called at 3 a.m. in the morning, one of them is bound to pick up, and you can say anything and exactly how you're feeling without fear, without reservation. And then number 2, it could also be journaling. And like I said, buy a journal, right? You might for me, by the way, this does not come naturally. I struggle to journal. Like I will journal consistently, like for every day, for like even 3 days, and then after that it gathers dust, and then 2 weeks I remember I haven't journaled for a while. So if you need to put a reminder to journal, go right ahead. Now, as we speak about journaling, I went for therapy at some point, and I'm going to get into that later. And one of the things I was told to do is to, while you're writing, you can write 2 things you like about yourself and the current situation. And what that does is that it makes you gravitate more towards a grateful mind, a grateful heart, as opposed to just all the bad things that are currently happening to you. Another thing could be write a letter to your younger self. And you know, this is actually a really amazing way to handle some of the traumas that happened to you. And you know, speak to that young girl, speak to that young person you were, and write them a letter and tell them all the things that you've done and achieved and accomplished, and that life did in fact turn out well. Additionally, you could write a letter to your older self, stuff you're hoping to do, stuff you're hoping to achieve, who the kind of person you want to become eventually. And while we're still here, and I have tried this and it was quite effective, is writing a letter to people that you're angry about. Like if in this situation it is your spouse, a friend of yours, and you know they have really made you mad, and there are all these things that you need to say. A safe thing would be to say all those things in a letter and then burn it, you know. Of course, we're not trying to be hurtful here by giving them that letter, because here you're just trying to express your feelings as they are, yeah? And especially for those of us who are extroverts, myself included, I have to be very careful about the things I say. Sometimes, like, I say things and I'm like, damn, that is so hurtful. And unfortunately, I can't go back for it. So a safe way would be to write it and say all the things you need to say. Even if your penmanship is going to be like really angry, it's okay. Then you take that letter, don't tear it up, don't put it somewhere they will read. We're not trying to get them to be upset. We're just trying to remove all the feelings we have, and then, you know, burn it, and that is effective. And then finally, I would say see a therapist. Now, on my IG stories the other day, I asked, have you ever seen a therapist, and why have you not? And I will post some of the screenshots that I got, and most people have been feeling like, I was really excited for those who have already gone, either because they are aware they struggle with anxiety or they were going through a certain crisis at the time. But there were those people who said that they've never gone for therapy, that they feel that it's expensive and they are unable to access it. Now, I want to say that especially now, because COVID has really taught us about doing things online, I have a lot of friends who are therapists that have been doing sessions over the phone or even Zoom. And this is actually a model we've had to employ at Still a Mom, because people are still losing babies and they are still in need of counseling. And so we've been doing Zoom, and it's ended up being very effective. So if you let me, I'm actually going to share the numbers of certain therapists in the description box at the bottom, in case you need to talk to somebody. And they are affordable people, and you know, yes, they are affordable. You can talk to them, and you can even develop into a habit of speaking to them frequently, not necessarily only when you have a crisis, but even sometimes when you need some form of direction in your life. And then the last thing I wanted to do is ask you, what are some of your coping mechanisms? What do you do when you feel like, I need to decompress? You know, healthy coping mechanisms, not unhealthy. We're not saying go grab a bottle of beer and overdo it and be drunk and go into substance abuse. That's not it. We're talking about healthy coping mechanisms. So I'd like to hear, because everyone is unique, different things work for all of us. So what do you do? Please put that in the comment section, and you might be able to give somebody an idea they can use to help them to decompress and to feel better and handle their stress. Thank you very much, and see you soon.